Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this whole video, what we got is here. Let me tell you, we got one of those, whodunits. Kind of, if you squint, in Cottonwood. Cottonwood is in California. You know, the up part near Redding. Well, down of Redding. You know how you drive up and down? In the shadow of Mount Shasta. You know, you hear tales of some kind of unsolved mysteries and aliens and that kind of stuff coming from Mount Shasta. And some people would very much like this case to be an unsolved mystery. Maybe it was aliens, who knows? But anyway, Cottonwood is about as interesting as the information I just gave you. But thankfully, that's not the subject of today's video. Mark Duenas is. We are going to three things in this video. 2012, Shasta County, and get into it. Or give it a go. Or whatever. In Cottonwood lived the Duenas family, a family of 7. And on May 4th, 2012, the family attended a high school baseball game where Casey Duenas, the youngest, the baby of the family in his final year of high school, was batting away. It was a beautiful, sunny afternoon. These stories always start this way. Casey was the only one still left at home as he was finishing up high school. The Duenas family had 4 other young'uns, all lads. You got your Jason, your Jacob, your Tyler, your Troy, and your Casey. But they all lived out of town apart from Jason, who lived next door with his own family. And Casey, of course, who still lived at home. But they were a tight-knit family, like they were, at that baseball game, parents Mark and Karen, proudly looked on. Mark and Karen had been together since their high school days, since they were both 17. And they were both locals. They were Mormons, married young, and by the time 2012 came along, it would be 33 years. When they were both 51 years old. Their marriage, by all accounts, was still going strong. They would, regularly go on dates, that kind of stuff. Karen was a homemaker until the kids were old enough, and then she taught at Shasta College, where she was beloved. And she was actually heading to nursing school herself. Now that the kids were all grown up, she wanted to start her own career. Mark, he was a UPS driver, up at the crack of dawn. So this was like a lovely day in Cottonwood. After the baseball game, Mark and Karen headed back to their house, while Casey, he followed a little bit later, and then he would head off that evening, that night, going to a 9:15 showing of The Avengers for, a Friday night flick. He arrived home late to a darkened house. Lights off, doors to his parents' separate bedrooms were closed. Mark and Karen slept in separate bedrooms, as Mark, he would have to be up early, for his driving job, and he also, snored, so Karen probably fucked him out. Anyways, Casey tiptoed in at 12:30, fell asleep. I mean, that's what we know of until about then. Because after that, it, gets a bit iffy. Next thing Casey knew, Mark was bursting in the door, telling him to get the hell up and go next door to Jason's. Jason, the oldest son, he was a volunteer firefighter. Because something had happened to Karen. This was at 12:56 a.m. on May 5th. And Mark made a 911 call. Alright, so listen up. The quality of this call, it's not great. I'm not going to subtitle all of it though, because I want you to listen to it for yourself. And maybe decide what he's saying. Because it will come up later in the story as quite contentious. Give it a go.
911, your emergency.
My wife's sick and blood everywhere.
You need an ambulance?
Yeah,
okay, hold on a second.
Everything.
Hang on, let me get to a medical dispatcher. Hold on, sir.
This is 911. What's the address you need an ambulance at?
Yes, I need 481 Robinson Glen Drive, Cottonwood, California.
Tell me exactly what happened.
I just came in the room, I heard her, and she's got blood everywhere. Everywhere. I don't know. I have no idea.
You have no idea what happened? Is she awake?
She's awake, but she's still. I need somebody here right now. Please.
Okay. You don't know where she's bleeding from?
No, I don't. There's blood everywhere.
Okay.
I don't know where it's coming from.
Are you with her now?
Yes. Oh, it's in her chest.
Put that on pause, we'll come back to that. So Jason, he was awoken, by Casey. Well, Jason was actually already awake because he had a pager, after 911 call, and, emergency services arrived. There was a lot of blood. Karen was pronounced dead at the scene. She had been stabbed to death. The police then began, immediately to snoop around. Now, footprints were found in the back garden near Karen's window. But who owned the foot? Karen's bedroom faced the back garden. The screen on the window was broken. It had been cut open. And there were prints which led from her window to the fence, to a gate, and then to a small canal out back. After that, the trail went cold. But another neighbor, he said he saw a car racing out of there just around that time. And some other neighbors said they saw, strange folk loitering around the place. Can't be having that now. I mean, what more do you need? But for all this, nothing was missing. The place was intact. So, possibly, a burglary gone wrong. Classic, am I right? Somebody tried to break in, they didn't know Karen would be there, they were surprised. And then, knifey to the wifey, It's possible. Technically, anything is possible. But is it probable? After all, the screen was cut, but the shutters were fine, not moved as if someone, covert-like, snuck in. So even a blind man could see where this was leading, and it was leading to the only other guy in the house, the guy who conveniently didn't share a bed with the woman who was murdered in hers. Marky Mark and the Funky Hunch. But what was his story? He said that evening they were watching TV together. Karen went to bed before him. He stayed up a little longer to watch the Giants game before heading off himself. Once again, to their separate bedrooms. He then, quote, heard weird screaming, like a cat. And he started snooping around and he eventually wandered in and found her.
I'm asleep. Yeah. I hear crazy noise. And you hear a cat sound like, it wasn't cats, it was a weird scream.
Talking or?
No, I just heard some weird screaming type stuff.
And then what'd you do from there?
I got up, and because I didn't want those, whatever was going on, to wake up my wife, because I'm sensitive like that. And I went to that door by the kitchen, opened it up, and looked out there. I didn't see any cats. Shut it, walked down the hallway, looked under, the lights were on. So I figured she's up. Opened the door, and that's when I found her.
It was noted at the scene that when, the police first arrived, the blood was kind of dry. Like, it wasn't immediately fresh, if you understand me. The blood on the floor was no longer pooling when the police arrived, but had soaked into the carpet, which also struck the detective as unusual, because this was a nice part of town, safe, and the high-end carpet that was on the floor of the room, it wouldn't usually soak up that much blood that fast. It's like the blood just evaporated into the carpet or something. Which, the detective would write in his little report that, Mark, he called right after, she was murdered when he heard a cat. But it seemed like this had happened a few hours prior. Not immediately before the police arrived kind of thing.
Good afternoon, my name is Thomas Eichel, Shasta County Sheriff. This is the press conference for the Duenas homicide. Mark Duenas reported he found his wife, Karen, inside her home with chest wounds. Upon arrival, deputies and EMS personnel located Karen Duenas inside the residence, and she was pronounced dead at the scene. There was also some pedestrian foot traffic that was in the area prior to the report coming in, and those witnesses, people have been contacted, and there was nothing suspicious reported or observed by them. Detectives have continued their neighborhood canvass and evidence search area efforts, utilizing a canine from the Department of Fish and Game. And that canine is what we call a article search canine. And she has been successful in the past in discovering articles from crime scenes.
And so the investigation continued, and the authorities told the worried and scared people of Cottonwood, who were fearful, a madman could be on the loose, to chillax. We got this under control. We have a person of interest.
Person of interest is a person that we're definitely interested in, we're looking very strongly at. Within the case, we're not prepared to name that person as an official suspect as of yet.
As my staff said in recent days, based upon the information they have in their investigation, we have at this time, there is no increased danger to the general public.
Yeah, when those rumors began to spread about who was the prime suspect, the family was like, no. Yeah, they just weren't having it. There's no way, Mark, he could be the suspect. Like, you're taking the piss here, come on. Mark and Karen loved each other. He had no history of violence. Why would he kill her? Pooh, get your thumb out of your ass and find the real killer. This was because the police learned from Mark directly, actually, that there was, I don't think you'd call this an affair, but there was another woman, a married woman.
What was going on in our life, and it scares me when I think about it.
They weren't banging, but they had been messaging each other, and Karen had found out, so Mark said he wouldn't message her anymore and got in a secret phone. He volunteered this to the police. A couple of years before this all happened, Mark got on this newfangled thing called Facebook. It's gonna be big. He got on there and started yapping away to a girl he knew in school. And while they didn't actually meet up, I love yous were shared. Multiple I love yous. Now mind you, they hadn't seen each other since the 70s, so I would have liked to see those profile pictures. So yeah, Mark kind of had like an online girlfriend, Hey, she's real, I swear.
Then, we kind of got carried away with a little texting here and there.
She was real. Real bad news for Mark and the murder investigation into his wife.
Was there ever any pictures sent or anything like that, or was it always just...
There's pictures of just maybe me or her, just little innocent...
innocent stuff. Maybe a little titty now and then, right on.
We're not into any of that nasty porn, none of that.
Right.
It was just, what do you look like now? She'd send a picture of her and she goes, your turn. She does a quilt, or she took a picture of her quilt, showed it to me.
Right.
This innocent stuff. She had a picture of her and her grandkid and stuff like that.
Now this woman, however, she did end it. And what? About 3 months before May of 2012. But to the police, this was like manna from the heavens, the good stuff. The tits.
I didn't do it. And I mean, it's crazy.
Okay, it's just like OJ. We need to be out there finding the real killers, right? LAPD, they didn't have to go find the real killers.
I know you're doing your job, but I would never lay a hand on my wife. I did not hurt her. I did not kill her. I walked in and found her in her condition.
They wanted to use this as motive.
When did you find out that Karen was going to leave you, Mark?
Leave me? She's never going to leave me. Never going to leave me. Honestly.
In fact, during the interview, Mark said maybe her husband, quote, went psycho or something and, killed my wife. Maybe it was the hubby, just not that one. And they lived in Idaho. So, and in fact, that night, they were at some kind of church function. So, due to that, this woman and her partner were ruled out. So how rocky was the marriage? Actually, well, the family said it was great. They confided in their kids all the time and everything was hunky-dory. It wouldn't be, though, for Mark. 5 months later, in October 2012, Mark was arrested. He was charged with first-degree murder.
For the first time tonight, we are hearing from the family of the Cottonwood man accused of killing his wife last year. Mark Duenas was arrested in October for murdering his wife of 33 years, Karen.
Nearly 20 of Mark's supporters gathered at the Shasta County Courthouse this afternoon. They included his family, friends, and his co-workers. Both the Duenas family as well as Karen's family continue to maintain his innocence.
The trial went ahead in the summer of 2013. Mark's family were with him the entire time, as was Karen's. They were all there in support of Mark together. The prosecution said the motive for murder was that woman, the woman he'd been messaging on Facebook. The woman he had stopped messaging and never actually physically met her. Yes, so something happened that night between Mark and Karen. We don't actually know, so we'll make it up. But they thought maybe she was gonna divorce him when she found out about the secret phone, and so he killed her. He killed her maybe, after 10 p.m., then cleaned himself and made it look like what it looked like. So, what did it look like again? Well, somebody had wandered around the backyard. It was a warm, sunny day, but their footprints were still visible in the grass, so fair play to that. Then they cut the screen, but didn't actually go in that way. For the crack. They said, fuck that, entered the house some other way, wandered into Karen's room, murdered her while sounding like a cat, and then just left without leaving a trail of blood behind them. Another job well done. So after Mark, could have possibly done all of this, then he waited for Casey to arrive home before calling the police. And in fact, he actually wanted Casey to be the one to discover Karen, But instead, he went straight to bed, so Mark had to be like, oh, cats, and then went in. And that's when we get back to that 911 call.
911, your emergency?
I'm having my wife sick and blood everywhere.
You need an ambulance?
What did he say? Did he say A?
I'm having my wife sick and blood everywhere.
Or B?
I'm having my wife sick and blood everywhere.
That was the prosecution's, finger guns moment. Though the defense said it was obviously,
I'm having my wife sick.
I mean, I'll play devil's advocate here for a minute, but that really does not sound like he said, I found my wife sick. Get out of that.
Law enforcement claims he admitted to killing Karen, but they say that's not true either.
Now that the 911 call has been made public, it is obvious that our father said no such thing. However, we are fearful that the damage had already been done.
And it's clearly, if he did say on the phone that he killed her, why didn't they arrest him that very night? Why did they wait 5 months before arresting him? Now, though, in a jailhouse interview, Mark would say that he thought the police had finagled with that recording, that it wasn't even him who said that. True to magic of editing. The defense would also say, remember neighbors saw other people, they saw a car whizzing by. Footprints. Who cut the screen? If you don't believe it was Mark. The jury couldn't decide, which, I suppose to be fair, maybe you might be in the same boat. And so a mistrial was declared.
We all support Mark completely. We don't think that he was capable of this.
I just want to make a simple point. You see these people? This is love. This is belief in this human being. This is not question in our hearts. Please listen to us and know we love this man and he's a good man. That's all. Thank you.
Now, whatever he said on the phone could be given more credence, being an actual slip of the tongue, when you look back and see this piece of interrogation footage.
Like the guy knew what he was doing or something, because the way he cut her, that's the only cut I saw, and there was tons of blood. But there was none there coming out when whoever did it, I mean, for fuck's sake. That would be used in the second trial, which began in November 2013. What would also be used in the second trial was more evidence. Evidence of blood on Mark's clothing. It was Karen's blood, and it wasn't visible to the naked eye. Only by using good old luminol. Kinda actually seemed to be everywhere, and although some of it could be explained by him touching Karen when he found her, and then touching his shirt, not all of it could be. And it's like, what was on his shirt?
It wasn't bloody enough for him to have, oh, my wife, touched her. She had been cut open with a knife. So it wasn't bloody enough to have done that. Yet it was bloody enough to have traces left. Which is interesting. That would then lead back to him, maybe cleaning his clothes before his son came home after seeing, the Avengers. They also found in the kitchen a knife. One that could possibly have been the weapon that was A, in the wrong slot, and that's men for you, and B, possibly had some kind of cleaning agent on the handle. So, when trial number 2 came to a close, this time things weren't so good for Mark. Now, it must have been difficult, I guess, to come to a conclusion, but they sure did. Mark Duenas was found guilty of first-degree murder. Duenas done did it. He was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Since then, Mark, he's appealed, but it was soundly rejected. He's not going anywhere. In fact, neither is his son Jacob, the second oldest, who's now joining him in prison. Jacob, a former California highway patrolman, was caught diddling kids. He got 26 years for that one. One more year than the minimum for his death. And so ends the case of Mark Duenas. It's an interesting one in that you can kind of see both sides. You could see how he could have and couldn't have, although personally I'm coming down more on the could have. It's kind of a textbook rule though, maybe even number 1, that if you're gonna, hey, kill somebody, we don't say it over the phone, on the phone to 911. Mark really should have written that rule down. But the why to me has never really made sense.
Why did I have to walk in?
This was filmed when Mark was alone in the police interview room. What he means by that? Did he walk in on his wife with his secret phone and lost it? Who knows? Is there ever really, though, a good enough reason for a why? To murder? I suppose I could break out my life insurance stance once again. But I won't. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you. Sure, go on, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you as always real soon in the next one. Till then, Mike out.